Okay, it's 9:30 and we're going to commence our workshop. Let's do roll call first to determine we have a quorum. Ed Bennett,
Here.
Rudy Garza,
Here.
Libby Averett,
Here.
Dr. Villarreal, Bill Kelly,
Here.
Dr. Turner, Susan Hutchinson.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. A moment of silence. Let's all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Kelly, you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag and country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us read the Del Mar Vision Statement. Del Mar College is streaming live audio and video from the official Board of Regents meeting on the college website in real time, with expectations of portions of the meeting considered as closed session by statutes. Any general public comments? Okay, items of business. Discussions related to preliminary budget for the fiscal year 2023. Mr. Raul Garcia, excuse me.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board, and Mr. President. The college has synthesized all the budget requests and have made significant changes to the requests, resulting in today's proposed 2023 budget plan. Our slide deck includes information on our operating revenues and expenses, an expense budget and resource allocations that will help drive our strategic plan. Our ask of the board is that you please provide your perspective during the presentation as we look towards finalizing the 2023 proposed budget in the month of August. So let's get started. So I will not go too much into the details of the calendar. So I will move on to the last slide of the calendar. So I do want to point out a few critical dates for the month of August. August will be a busy month whereby the board will help the college with the final stages of the budget process. At our regular board meeting scheduled for August the 9th, the college will request the board to approve action items to conduct 2 public hearings, one on the proposed budget and second on the proposed property taxes. We have not finalized a time for this meeting, but as a reference point, last year's meeting started at 10:30 in the morning. The 2 public hearings are scheduled for August 23rd. Immediately thereafter, after the 2 public hearings, the college will present several action items for board approval of the proposed budget, the proposed tax rates, and property tax exemptions. We have once again not finalized a time for this meeting, but as a reference point, last year's meeting started at noon. If there are no questions, Mr. John Johnson will describe the college's proposed 2023 budget revenues. Thank you.
Good morning, Regents, Dr. Escamilla, and guests. I will begin. Excuse me. I will begin with our assumptions. I'll go over our preliminary revenue budget for the upcoming fiscal year. As you're aware, our revenues come from three primary sources: tuition, local property taxes, and state revenues. Starting with tuition, you will see an increase to in-district tuition of $2, which was approved by the board in February for the upcoming fiscal year. This increase should raise approximately $162,000 in additional revenues based upon current enrollment levels. Due to the continuing loss in enrollment seen in 2021 and 2022, we brought on by the pandemic, the college made the decision to drop the 2019 enrollment levels by 10%. While this does not match the total enrollment losses, the college anticipates a partial increase to enrollment with the opening of the Oso Creek campus. Going on to property taxes, as shown, the college preliminary budget includes no change to the overall tax rate. Preliminary information received from the appraisal district in April indicates a possible valuation growth of 6% and approximately $450 million in new construction. Due to the large number of variables that are unknown at this time, such as protested property value outcomes, increase in value of property in the tax increment reinvestment zone, increase in values of industries which have been given abatements, property freezes, increases in exemptions, etc., a final taxable value cannot be accurately determined. Going on to state appropriations, there are three components to the state revenue: base funding, insurance, and retirement contribution. Base funding and insurance contributions are set by the state each biennium. Because we are in the second year of the biennium, no increase would normally be received. You will see a slight increase in insurance due to a last-minute amendment given to the colleges after our prior year budget had been approved. Retirement funding increases due to additional employee hires and adjustment for salary increases will be seen. So based on these assumptions, if you look at the slides here under revenue, you will see a slight insurance contribution of $17,874, a retirement contribution increase of $306,213. So the total state funding will increase by $324,000. Using our increase in our $2 in-district tuition increase and then reducing it by the 10% adjustment in enrollment losses, we anticipate about a $1.586 million decrease in tuition and fees. Property taxes, based on the assumptions that we're using, we anticipate approximately $4.934 million in new tax revenues. There is a slight decrease in miscellaneous. We did make an adjustment because since 2019 and 2020 and 21, we saw a decrease in interest that we earned. So we're adjusting it downward. Even though interest rates are going up, they won't make up for the losses we saw in years 20 and 21. So our overall preliminary revenues over last year's budget will show an increase of about $3.4 million. Are there any questions on this slide?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
The projected decline in enrollment, is that based on contact hours?
No, it's based on head count.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Bennett, I'd like to, there's a rest of that story that's still unfolding. You asked a very good question, so it's a partial, it still remains a conservative yet partial statement on total revenues, and so there's much to be followed up on that particular aspect of it. Thank you for asking that question.
So if there's no more questions on that slide, I'll go on to the final slide I'll be presenting. Looking at the top of the last two columns, you will see the overall tax rate remains unchanged at 0.283340. The tax rate increase for M&O of approximately a half penny was offset by a reduction in the debt service rate necessary to pay for debt service requirements for outstanding tax debt obligations for the 2023 fiscal year, which decreased by approximately $242,000. At the bottom of that slide, the bottom of that slide shows the increase in tax obligations for an average taxable homestead of $193,031. Total additional obligations would be $31. Last year's average taxable homestead valuation was $182,000. That's why normally if the valuation had stayed equal, you wouldn't see any tax increase to the average tax payer, but because the average valuations went up is the reason you see that additional $31 in additional taxes between fiscal year 22 and 23. Are there any questions on that slide? If not, Kathy West will present the next section of the budget.
Okay, so our ultimate purpose, of course, in our annual budget process is to ensure that we have sufficient resources to meet the operational needs of the college. But most important is that we ensure that we allocate our resources so that we support our strategic plan and its goals and initiatives so that we accomplish the mission of the college. So on this slide, we're showing you all the goals of the strategic plan, and every year we ensure that the increases, budget increases that are asked for by budget managers do correlate to a strategic goal and initiative. And this slide shows you our focuses for fiscal year 2023. Of course, number one, our Oso Creek campus is coming online this year, and so we will be making sure that we have the operational expenses to cover the operations of the campus. And then we're always seeking to expand programming in our service area. One good example is our Aransas Workforce Development Center that we plan on opening in 2023. And then always ensuring that there's sufficient resources for the recruitment and retaining of our exceptional faculty and staff. And now I'll turn it over to Tammy McDonald, who will go over the proposed salaries.
Good morning. On this slide, we have provided 4 salary increase scenarios with the associated budget impact. I will point out to begin that in all of the faculty scenarios, the year experience pay remains at the current rate of $829. The other 3 components of faculty pay shows a % increase to the rate schedule for that component. So if you look at scenario 1, for faculty, it is showing the year experience pay and then an increase of 1% to the 3 components, which are rank, education, and base, or common base. This dollar value in the column also includes any promotions that have already been approved and the impact that this increase would have to summer pay, because summer pay is calculated off of a faculty member's 9-month contract. Okay. And then if you go down so it shows the associated benefits of that increase to faculty. So scenario 1 Total faculty salary and benefits is about $693,000. In scenario 1 for exempt and non-exempt, it is a 1% increase to the current salary. So for exempt, with the associated benefits would be about $180,000, non-exempt would be about $90,000. So the total budget impact for scenario 1 would be about $964,496. If you go to scenario 2, the difference between one is the 1% changed to 2%, and that is the only difference. So the faculty total with benefits would be 985, exempt 360, non-exempt 181, so the total budget impact would be a little bit over 1.5 million. If you go to scenario 3, the only difference from 2 to scenario 3 is that for the non-exempt category, it has a 3% rather than a 2%. All the other categories stay just like scenario 2 except non-exempt. It's giving them 1 extra percent. So if you look at the budget impact bottom line of that scenario 3, it's 1.6 million, a little over 1.6 million. If you go to scenario 4, the difference is the categories is all of the percentages changed to 3. So you would have the 3 components for faculty at 3, exempt and non-exempt, all at 3% increase. And that budget impact will be a little bit over $2 million. For budget planning purposes, we have used scenario 2 in this preliminary budget workshop, which would be the flat 829 for faculty year experience, 2% to their other 3 components, and then exempt and non-exempt 2% to their current salary. Any questions on this slide?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You're proposing the 2% increase. What's the inflation this year?
Right now, it's right at about an 8.6.
So
CPI.
the faculty, or all employees going to lose about 2%, I'm sorry, about 6%, more than 6%.
Well, I think that when we have looked at what other, and not just colleges are doing, but across the board, we're seeing anywhere from 1% to 5%. I haven't seen where any industry is being able to right now keep up with inflation. I think if you look at our history, we have had a very good history of keeping up with the CPI plus. In many years, when inflation was maybe 4 or 5, was about 0.9% was CPI, we were given 4 and 5% increases. But at this time, based on resources available, this is what we are using in this budget workshop today.
Okay, I'd be interested to hear the faculty feedback on that.
Excuse me?
I'd be interested to hear the faculty feedback before we approve the budget.
Yes, and we do have a compensation committee meeting next week, and we will be discussing these scenarios. And we do continue our work with the compensation committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No other questions? Okay, I will turn this over to Jackie Landrum.
Thank you. Good morning. So for our preliminary non-salary expense budget for fiscal year 2023, right now we're estimating about a $2.3 million increase. Most of these increases are related to the Oso Creek campus for items such as custodial, ground maintenance, property insurance, and fire and safety monitoring. We are expecting an increase in campus police as we are scheduled to be fully operational next year. We are expecting an increase in our security contracts, which is related to extended service needs for the Oso Creek campus. Our property insurance is expected to increase due to a premium and the oncoming of the Oso Creek campus. For fiscal year 2023, it is an election year, and we are increasing our computer equipment budget for information technology to replenish those funds that we reallocated last year. We are also estimating an increase in our testing fees, which is offset by an increase in revenues for those revenues that we'll collect on those testing fees. So during our analysis, we reviewed our current utilities budget and we corresponded with our consultant on our electricity and determined that we actually have a savings in our electricity. So that savings is valued at $525,000. So we have reallocated those funds to fund other priorities. Do we have any questions on this slide? Okay. Ms. McDonald's going to come up and discuss the changes in the salaries and benefits.
Thank you, Jackie. On this slide, it shows the salary expense for the different employee types for budget adjustments, the preliminary proposed salary increase, and that is also shown in a separate line item. So if you can see where it's salary increase scenario 2, it's just a separate line item. It's not broken out into the different categories. That breakdown is provided to you in slide 12. So if you look at faculty salaries from budget 22 to 23, and again, this does not include the proposed increase, there is about a little over $1.6 million decrease in the faculty salary budget. In exempt salaries, there is about $182,000 increase in exempt salaries. Exempt instruction, it is about $27,000, almost $28,000 decrease in non-exempt salaries, $968,000 increase. And then this non-exempt salaries for instruction, I think upon further review, that one line, the $55,000 increase, that's probably going to be looked at, and it's probably going to move over to the exempt salary for instruction. So that 155, so that'll stay flat for the non-exempt instructional. That one item we will move for the next presentation up to the exempt instruction line. And then it shows you your salary increases at scenario 2, which is a little over $1.2 million. The associated benefits, so together the adjustments to the budget for total salary and benefits is a little over $1 million. Do you have any questions on this slide?
I've got a question, and maybe I missed it in the packet, but why are we anticipating a $1.6 million decrease in faculty salaries?
Okay. What we did when we went and analyzed the positions in the budget, we budgeted less term faculty positions. We usually use more terms when enrollment is increasing, and we did an analysis on the last couple of years of the average number of term, which are temporary, full-time faculty that we have used, and we felt like it was appropriate to reduce that number by 15 head count. So that was a significant part of that 1.6. We also looked at faculty positions that are on our current vacant list, and they could be vacant for retirements or for just people moving and going to other positions. And we have readjusted the budget for entry-level faculty instead of budgeting at the exit level of the person who just left that position. Because sometimes it's, they're pretty significant when they've been here a while and they've retired. So due to those two factors is how we were able to decrease that line item by 1.6.
Tammy, could you also go ahead and define term faculty for everybody?
Right. A term is a temporary full-time faculty member, and we hire them for a term or a semester. So that's why we call them term faculty. So they're temporary full-time for a semester. Sometimes they teach the whole academic year, but we hire them per term, depending on class demand.
So this is a reflection of the anticipated lower student enrollment in large part, and also, I guess, more accurate calculating of what people are actually being paid based on their longevity?
And ebbs and flows of different scenarios, yes, of people, some impending and or executed retirements and everything else. And so there's multiple scenarios, as Ms. McDonald explained in there. And so we've been able to look backwards 1 year, seeing what's happening, and anticipating a different scenario. Now, if it goes the other way, we're ready for it, and we'll adjust if enrollment goes the other way and increases. Right now, we're taking a flat scenario and something that's more conservative than certainly what we had last year before the Omicron.
Okay, so if we do actually see an increase in enrollment, the increase in tuition would fund the additional faculty we would need?
Well, the $2 will help some, but it was it's obviously on the positive side, and I think that's the best way I can answer that piece.
All right, so we don't know for sure then.
You always make your best estimate depending on what happens over summer and the like. We're still in June. You know, it's still preliminary. All of these scenarios, many of the variables today are still in flux. And so they will have developments over the next 6 weeks, especially as it relates to taxes and especially as it relates and enrollment. You know, we're seeing fall enrollments, preliminary fall enrollments ticking upwards and moving upwards already. And so, but we're seeing the first part of summer still soft. And so we're dealing with that as well. So this is, again, a preliminary exercise to kind of bring us some baseline numbers and scenarios to kind of tell everybody to stay tuned. And again, when we get to our workshop in late July is when we'll have more solid estimates and forecasting for the fall budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So is it fair, if a fair restatement and the answer to your question is that if the enrollment increases, that additional tuition, not just the $2, but the fact that there's a new student there is going to cover new faculty expenses?
Yes, that's that opposite scenario, yeah, absolutely.
Is that what you heard? Okay.
Yep. Thank you for helping me with that.
Is our goal to, depending on what plays out in the next 6 weeks, to at least consider scenario 4 as it pertains to salaries?
I think at this point, I asked that we put all 4 scenarios on the table for a range. I think scenario 4 is most optimistic, is the best way I can put that. I would always hope for those kinds of things for our employees. We'll just have to see what the next 6 weeks look like.
You know, it's definitely a difficult time right now, right, in the economy, and I think, given Regent Bennett's questions too, certainly you have our support in trying to do everything we can, I think, for the employees, but recognizing that that is a challenge.
Yeah, that's very important feedback, and that's the kind of feedback that we're looking for to fortify our efforts to move ahead, so that we move ahead as cautiously yet realistically and optimistically. We can balance all those leads together and really do everything we can. It's greatly appreciated. This kind of support is early on is why this preliminary budget presentation is important for that kind of feedback, and we will do our due diligence to continue looking and slicing ever more thinly the various areas of opportunity to find resources that are within the budget that makes all of that more possible, to make it more possible to better support our faculty and staff. Thank you.
And just to be clear, on the temporary term faculty, we looked at the last several years and came up with the average, but we did increase it by 10%. So we didn't just budget what we've been averaging. We did also make sure we had a little bit of extra room for that potential enrollment growth. So we did budget for what we'd averaged on the term faculty plus about 10% over.
Yep. The inflation, we've got to keep talking about it. Mr. Garcia has been talking about inflation for 2 years for the past 2 years or so, and it's a horrible thing that is upon us. And as the government works to level things out and so forth, we know that at the end of the day that our employees are being impacted tremendously by the whole thing. These are parts of our conversations. When we're talking about the compensation committee, it is a representative body of the college, of all facets of the employment of the campus, of the college. And, it's a real thing. And we've been asking, and we've put things on the table for consideration that we're still developing to offset the impact of inflation. But, again, this kind of feedback is what we need going in to support our presentations and proposals for the future. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I've got additional question, please. Although I'm supportive of making sure that we do everything we can to keep our faculty and staff in place. And I agree, we're in difficult times in terms of inflation and not being able to predict what the future's going to bring. The benefits portion right here, when we look at the increased in salaries or increase in expenses, is the retirement, because anytime that you raise salaries, you also have to set aside additional monies to take care of your retirement liabilities. Is that in the benefits portion here?
Yes, sir. It's
It is-
multiple factors. It is our retirement plan. It's also, so it's the employer cost. The benefits are all costs to the college. So it is the retirement plan, it's the Social Security match that the employer makes. When your salary increases, so does your life insurance and disability insurance that the college pays for the employee is based off of your salary. So that rate increases. And then also workers' compensation increases. So there are things that follow the salary increase, and those are the primary benefits that the college pays that will increase due to salary increases. Yes,
So
sir.
it is in here in the
Yes.
scenario 4?
On the benefits line, yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
I've got one last question, and this could be from Mr. Johnson, I'm not sure, but how confident are we in the 6% projection and the increase in property values? Or how confident is the county in that estimate?
I've spoken to Don Causey with the appraisal district. I've also spoken to Robert Sensei over at San Patricio County and try to get an idea. If the 6% is really looking good, I don't see any indications that that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
If anything, I think it might come out higher, but that doesn't really impact our tax rate at this time.
Right.
So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll let Ms. Landrum go over the remainder of the expenses. Thank you.
Thank you. So for the rest of this slide, for our non-salary expenses, is that $2.3 million increase that we discussed on the last slide. On contingency, we are looking at possibly another $51,000, and that's to meet that 1.5% that's required by board policy. So our total preliminary expense budget for fiscal year 2023 is the $3.4 million, which is about 3% higher than fiscal year 2022. So these next two slides are going to go into further detail on the preliminary expense budget. So the salary and benefit changes, that's the information that Ms. McDonald just went over. For the non-salary expenses, we are estimating an increase of about $350,000 in the supplies, postage, duplicating, copier rental, and that's really those testing fees that revenue is also increasing to offset. So for the maintenance, let's see. For maintenance and repairs, we are estimating $179,000, which is for fire and safety monitoring systems and other general maintenance. For equipment, it's that $288,000, and that's that increase for computers for information technology. And then the $292,000 for consultants and contract labor, that is for the custodial services at Oso Creek campus. So it is our election year, so we have the $160,000 in there. The $450,000 for security is related to the new contract for our security services, which is an overall increase, and with the addition of the Oso Creek campus. For bad debt, we went back and we looked at our average expense over the last 3 years, and we've been spending about $140,000 a year, so we did take $101,000 of that and reallocated it to fund other priorities. And then as we discussed earlier, we had the savings in our electricity budget of $525,000 that has also been reallocated to fund other priorities. Our property insurance premium has increased, and then with the addition of Oso Creek, we are anticipating a little over $1 million increase for property insurance. The $310,000 for campus police is to cover those one-time costs such as uniforms and an increase to the monitoring services for fire and safety systems. Our tuition bond payment is going to increase by $4,500 for fiscal year 2023. And then the reduction of $117,000 for miscellaneous, that's actually for our institutional matching. So we went back and we reviewed those contracts on those grants that were required to have institutional matching funds. So we were able to reduce that and reallocate that to other priorities. So with the changes that we've discussed and the increase in our contingency, we are estimating our preliminary expense budget to be $3,412,772. Are there any questions on this slide? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Everett, I want to circle back to your question. And so the question was, how certain are we that the 6% change in the property tax value is on point? And I think part of the answer, too, is that we need to talk about the voter-approved tax rate, which is the maximum amount legally that Del Mar College can tax our district before having to go through a voter-approved election to go anything beyond that. I can tell you we are already at the voter-approved tax rate. So any changes in the appropriations valuation, in order for us to comply with that legal standard, we would have to adjust our rates even lower if the property valuation comes in August above what we are currently estimating that value to be today. So hope that helps. Okay. With that said, that concludes our presentation, unless there's any other questions.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick parting comment, Regent Alame, is before we move on. Again, we came as a preliminary budget discussion. Our hopes are that next year we will be as close to, if not a complete budget, as close to a complete budget as possible by this time next year. We're going to try to move the calendar up. It's going to take a little bit more coordination on our part, but we believe that it's feasible, even with the legislative session. And we're going to hope that in years after that'll be the standard practice, so that we're not going into the rest of summer with as many unknowns. Now, that being said, we could come so far as to have an approved budget if everything works out in our favor by this time. And if there are anomalies and or adjustments and so forth, those could be amended in a July meeting and even an August meeting. So we're hoping to really move things up so that we can put a lot of these unknowns in front of us and do things. We know our colleagues from other colleges do this on a regular basis, and we've been talking about it for some time, but stay tuned. We'll see how that works out next year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And next year, we would still have the county information early enough, the property
Yes,
tax?
yeah, we would go with as close to an estimate as possible, as close an estimate as possible, and we could set some numbers based on what we know. Again, we're going to go to our colleagues and find out how they're doing it and so forth, and using their best practices in estimating and the like, and we'll have scenarios that we believe we could hang on to. And again, any adjustments up or down or any anomalies that develop over the course of the 6 weeks after, again, could also be administered and adjusted. So again, it's a aspirational goal at this point. We're going to see how that really works out, especially during the legislative year. So just stay tuned. And if it doesn't work out exactly, at least we're going to work to be even further ahead with our budgetary process than we are this year.
Okay, any other comments?
I've got a question. At what point, or maybe we have, maybe I missed it, but at what point do we actually get a chance to look at, say, 2022, just the past year, 2022 budget to actual, to determine how we did? And then also, the follow-up question to that too is, I know that we got some monies for the, I can't remember what they were called, but anyway, related to the COVID. The HERF dollars, yeah. And so I was just kind of wondering how we were doing and how that all worked into the budget for 2022.
Yes. So your first question, in your board package today, you do have some financial statements, and I can't recall through what period, I want to say through the month of May. It does shows our comparison of actuals to budget and as well as last year's figures as well, budget to actuals. In terms of a more comprehensive discussion for the quarter, we do that on a quarterly basis, and I believe that's scheduled for the month of the August board meeting. Pivoting to your question on the HERF dollars, yes, we do have HERF funding that's helped the institution fund many of our strategic needs, one of them being revenue losses that will, at the expiration of the grant, will no longer exist for us. However, we do have the risk reserves funds that we had planned for from the very get-go of the crisis. So we have a plan, and we're ready.
And then in terms of a HERF, an actual HERF update, it's in the fall, I think. I know.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's where I know you were headed. So
Yeah.
I don't know what month.
Sure, we moved it to the August for a HERF update. This way,
August.
we
You said
get the
August.
fall
I apologize.
term information as to how those awards to our students are trending. So we'll have better information.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's scheduled for August for the HERF dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, moving the agenda. Discussions related to strategic plan key performance indicators. Dr. Wilson?
Good morning, Regents, Dr. Escamilla and Mr. Rivera. This is part 5 of our strategic plan discussions for this academic year, and the last discussion we'll have this academic year. Our strategic plan, entitled Aspire, Engage, Achieve, was adopted 3 years ago and includes 6 overarching goals. As you know, because you've sat through many workshops already, each goal has associated KPIs, objectives, and strategies. During this workshop, we'll be focusing on the final 2 goals, goals 5 and 6. Again, by now, you're familiar with our format of data snapshots, thresholds, and targets, but I'd like to start each workshop with just a reminder. For each KPI that we've established, we have a threshold, which we consider to be our minimum baseline. If we don't meet this threshold, then there may be some actions, some resources that we need to tweak. For each KPI, we also have a target, which is our aspirational achievement goal that we seek to attain. And when you look at the KPIs, if we met our threshold or target, they will be color-coded red or green. I also like to give you a quick reminder. When we share our data at Del Mar College, we want to give you context. We want to share with you how we're doing, but then also how we compare to our peers. But as you know, there's no college that's exactly like Del Mar College. So what we seek to do is to share with you our peer group, and our peer group is the large college cohort, which is grouped according to size. And so you'll see on the screen the names of our peer group. They may be similar to us in size, but there's many differences. So just because we look at our peer group doesn't mean that these are identical schools to us. And we also try to show you the state averages as well. All right. Let's see if I can get my papers going. So let's get started with Goal 5, Workforce Development, Community Partnerships, and Advocacy. With this goal, we seek to strengthen our connections with workforce and community partners, educational agencies, and governmental bodies and officials. This is an area in which Del Mar College is particularly strong. There are 5 objectives that we seek to meet as part of Goal 5. ensuring optimal educational offerings for our region, seeking employment opportunities for our graduates, strengthening collaboration and communication with new and established partners, and advocacy at the local, state, and national levels. So let's get started with a discussion of educational offerings. So why do our students come to Del Mar College? You can argue that it's for a number of reasons. We have great faculty and staff, beautiful facilities. We have a very fun mascot. People love Del Mar College. But I would argue and say that one of the main reasons people come to Del Mar College is because of what we offer, our educational offerings, the credentials, the variety of which they can earn here with us. And Del Mar College seeks to align its educational offerings with the needs of its communities and workforce partners through credit, continuing education, and corporate services training programs. So I know you know this already. We offer a variety of programs. We'll be discussing the following aspects of our educational offerings: new programs and expansions, program closures, instructional program review, transfer partnerships, and workforce advisory committees. So all of these things are going on behind the scenes as we operate as a college. We seek to keep our educational offerings fresh in a variety of ways. We develop new programs when the need arises, and as our regents, you know this because we bring them to you when we develop new programs for your approval. A few examples of credit programs that were recently developed and approved are the Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree, the BSN, the AAS in Fitness and Exercise Science, and the AAS in Electrician degrees. When developing a new program, we must first establish that there is a significant local need and a demand for jobs or transfer opportunities in the field. In addition to developing new programs, our credit programs also have the opportunity to make adjustments to their curriculum, make adjustments to their curriculum annually through the curriculum committee approval process. Changes to program curricula are reflected in each year's new academic catalog. Programs also undergo a thorough review process every 5 years, known as the Instructional Program Review Process. You received an update on the most recent programs that completed their review at the last meeting. The review process entails an examination of student learning data, student success data, and administrative effectiveness measures. The college also closes programs when the need arises. It does happen on occasion. Changes in industry standards, state requirements, and local needs may result in the need to close existing programs. Two examples of programs that were recently closed are the AAS in Child Development, Early Childhood Assistant Program, and the Level 2 Certificate in Surgical Technology. So we're proud of our programs. We have quite a few of them, but we want to demonstrate to you that there are changes on an ongoing basis.
Excuse me. So,
Yes, sir.
Regent Goddard, so this goes back to some comments and some just dialogue that we'd had several months ago about the ebbing and flowing and or the monitoring of our programs. And so here it is right here. I remember we talked about it, and I knew it was coming up. I think it was part of our program review discussion, some other things. And so, you know, we've done this periodically over the years, and it's how we monitor the effectiveness and the excellence of our instruction. And so it's just all a part of doing business, and it's something that I think Del Mar College has always kind of led I'm just going to say led other colleges and just really maintain that quality. So I just wanted to, if you have any comments or any questions, I think this is a good time to ask about them. But I did make that mental note from our conversations of the past. So thank you for bringing this up.
You're welcome. Okay, any questions? All right. We also seek to ensure that our educational offerings align seamlessly for transfer at four-year institutions. We currently have 12 active articulation agreements, 6 inactive agreements, which we are in the process of renewing, and 10 additional agreements in development. Each of our workforce programs also must maintain an active advisory committee. Workforce advisory committees are industry-based, made up primarily of employers and other industry experts. They meet regularly to discuss program resources and also the program curriculum. Employers are asked to share how Del Mar College graduates are doing once they enter the workforce, and they are encouraged to share their feedback regarding areas in which our graduates may need additional training and additional education. In this way, our programs are designed to be dynamic and responsive to workforce and industry needs. So the previous slide, we mentioned how curriculum changes. We also want to share with you that we're not just changing it based on what we think is the best thing to do, but we are making sure to work with our transfer partners and also our workforce partners to ensure that what we're doing is in the best needs of our students and the region. I'll now be handing it over to Executive Vice President Keys, who will be talking about continuing education and corporate services programs.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Continuing education course programs provide a wide variety of workforce and personal enrichment programs. These are to dual credit students and open enrollment students throughout the area. Quite often we think of only the credit side of the college. However, through continuing education, students may take very similar programs and receive CE credit or a Del Mar College transcript and also work towards a credit program. These programs are aligned with the Texas Workforce Commission for the in-demand job listing and vary in length and cost. And here's an example on your screen now of a variety of the programs that they focus on. As you can see, they're very skill-focused and trades-focused quite often in the workforce area. Healthcare programs have become a highlight for continuing education and are presently in over 23 area ISDs. These healthcare programs provide students with different certifications, as you see here, like phlebotomy, certified nurse, and they work directly to provide students at the high school level and at the adult education level with the opportunity for high-paying jobs.
Laura, can I just jump in there?
Sure.
Can we just go back one slide? These programs right here, these certifications are so critical to any community's basic healthcare needs. These are students, more times than not, I think the preponderance of our students taking classes in this area are dual credit students that are preparing for healthcare fields and or even exploratory types of opportunities. The power of these that are being felt right now at the hospitals, I've been speaking to hospital CEOs of our region and throughout the state, and they are so excited about these students that are taking these classes. I know that various valedictorians and salutatorians from across our school districts, and I know namely my son's school over in Flower Bluff ISD, where both the valedictorian and salutatorian had numerous of these certifications, all pre-med students and going to the great universities and the like. So these are extremely powerful certifications. I had one story that what the principal over at Mr. Vella over at Moody told me the other day. He pulled me aside. He says, you know, I had one of my students go through, and just with the phlebotomy certification course, certification from the college, there was a student that said he was out now after high school earning $25 an hour as a phlebotomist. Okay, and he said, here's where the punch is. He says, and I am earning more than both my parents combined per hour. Think about that. Okay, there's one anecdote of hundreds and hundreds of these certifications that are being put out there. And I've always said that if a community college can help their community take care of their most basic need, which is health, then the community is better for it. I just had to put that commercial in there because I feel so strongly about all areas, but this is an area of increasingly importance, especially during the time of the pandemic and the like, and the rise of healthcare needs and the shortage of healthcare employees. Thank you for this opportunity for that commercial.
Thank you, Dr. Escamilla. Just to even underscore that, I have the privilege of representing the college at the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Board, And this is a huge topic, and it's wonderful to hear industry partners talking about how important the healthcare industry is for our community, and that these type of programs are even called out at that board and the need for them. Sidebar is Dr. Rivera leads this area, and we are now reaching out as far as Tivoli and Freer and, west and east and south and north as far as the school districts that want these programs. And they are continuing education. These are not college credit courses. However, they can lead students into a more medical field, such as our RN field or whatever. It does not guarantee them acceptance. I want to make sure everybody understands. However, it gives them the foundation and leads them into that career track to see if they really like it. So this is a tremendous, tremendous outpouring, really, within this field. So thank you. Corporate Services is another division within our workforce programs, and this is highlighting their programs and initiatives. And many of these certifications and accreditations overlap with continuing education and in corporate credit programs. Programs such as welding, students may take continuing education courses, or they may take credit courses, and at the same time receive the NCCER, which is your certification up here for your national construction programming, which is a national industrial certification that's acknowledged. And so it's an overlapping of accreditation that works. We also have NAPTA, which is your North American Process Technology Alliance. That's a new accreditation that we received this last year. And so students graduating with process technology in a credit program may also take a continuing education course and at the same time receive this industrial accreditation or certification that when they go apply for a job, it's highly recognized. So as you see this listing here, it shows the impact and the variety across the workforce area that we're reaching through our continuing education and our corporate services programs. I'd like to point out our U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeships that are up there. We are providing the apprenticeships for McAllen through San Antonio through the U.S. Department of Labor. Those contracts come through our corporate training and our continuing education programs. So it's very broad in scope, and we're very far-reaching in how we go about delivering these services. And I'll be providing more specific information on some of the completions later. This slide is showing the dollar value that we receive from corporate services customized training. This is an area where they work directly with business and industry through a contract to provide customized training. You can see in the highest year of 2019 in corporate services alone, they generated over $1.4 million. And then, of course, COVID hit and hurt 2020. However, we're back on track for 21, 22, and hopefully 22, 23 to get back into those areas. Transportation services is what we consider our CDL program, our commercial truck driving program. That's also run through continuing education, where we receive tuition. We also receive state reimbursement for this program. It's because it's continuing education. And you can see our high point of last year of over $1.3 million, and we're on track again this year. Our students are already enrolled out through August. So enrollment is very strong in these programs. And so we're very successful and wanted to show you the impact that these programs have really on our budget and what it does for our community as a whole. And now I'll turn it back over to Dr. Wilson.
Thank you. The next Goal 5 objective that we will discuss is employment. The college seeks to increase the number of graduates who attain employment in their chosen fields, and we have 2 KPIs associated with this objective. This KPI looks at the percentage of our graduates in credit programs who are found to be working or enrolled in college within 1 year after completing a degree or certificate. In 2020, our rate was 85.1%, which is a decrease from the prior year and is below our KPI threshold. Though we don't like to be below our KPI threshold, we're not surprised, given the timing of 2020, that we may have had a decrease in this particular KPI. Here's a visual representation of our 5-year trends. You will see the target that we have set for ourselves for 2024 as indicated by the blue star, and hopefully we'll still get there as we continue to rebound from COVID-19. Our threshold line is indicated by the red dotted line. Our graduate job placement rate did decrease in 2020, and again, that was not surprising. Let's look at the details for this KPI. I know it's small print, but hopefully you can see it on your screen. This looks at Del Mar College data, our large college peers data, and all Texas colleges. Also included is the breakdown of the percentage of students who are found to be working only, enrolled only, and working and enrolled. Del Mar College graduates found to be working only decreased by 2 percentage points during the last 5 years. And graduates found to be working and enrolled decreased by 3.6 percentage points during this time period as well. I'll pause here for any questions about this KPI.
Just a comment. Job placement particularly for workforce programs is an increasingly, I don't want to say important, it's all important, but it's increasing in importance at the state level. Job placement for community colleges in the future is something that we need to pay close attention to and may very well be rolled into, or could potentially be rolled into our funding methodologies of the future. It's something that the state leadership sees as a critical endpoint, a results, outcomes-based exercise that community colleges ought to be paying closer and closer attention to. It's part of our discussion at the commission, and so I just plant that seed of thought for the future as we continue to develop this KPI. It's important of monitoring is one thing, but advancing our capabilities, I think, in the future is going to be something that we are going to have to invest in. So just thank you for that opportunity.
Dr. Do you have is there a graph associated with this graduate job placement numbers? I'm just concerned that we're just comparing, when we look at that point change, that's just a comparison between 2016 and 2020, is that right? Oh, that's what I'm looking for.
This is our graph for our data in particular, and this looks at all of those subsets combined. So the way the state looks at it is working or enrolled. So these are our trends. So we have typically been around 89, 88, 87%, but with the impact of COVID-19, we did take a decrease.
Okay, that's helpful, so that we're not just comparing 2016, but also last year or the prior year.
Yes, to the prior year as well. And it is pretty interesting when you look at the breakdown of these numbers. Working only, you'll see that when compared to our peer group, that's significantly higher for Del Mar College graduates. But there were decreases across the board, across the state and also our peer group.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now, we've got our aspirational goal of 91%, and you said hopefully we'll reach it. What are we doing, or do we see trends that would suggest that that's realistic? Well,
I think through our relationships with our employers, the need to meet the needs of our workforce employers, I think that we will get there. I really do. I don't know if Dr. Escamilla wants to chime in, or maybe Lenora, based on their experiences.
Yeah, well, it's in both, but you hit the nail on the head. It's all about the relationships with our local industrial partners, especially because they have the biggest ramp-up opportunities. Well, I say that the healthcare, all industries are being consulted. We are, I think, strengthening our relationships. That's an area where Lenora works on a more frequent basis. with establishing those opportunities. I think really it's a matter of some unemployment things taking place, the slowing of the virus. I mean, all of those kind of indicators just coming out of this this economy that's really not, coming out of this situation where the economy is just really not slowing down in Texas, is our opportunity to continue to compete against ourselves, whether it's 91% or 86%, just steadily move up and increase those capabilities. Lenora, you want to jump in there?
Just as a sidebar, I had the privilege yesterday of listening to the lead economist with Goldman Sachs out of New York, was here in Corpus yesterday, and he was addressing the labor shortage right now in the United States. And he showed that 1.4 million workers have not returned to the workforce, and that they're either in savings is extremely high right now. If you look at the money supply, we have an extreme amount of savings, and so people are not returning to work yet. And we were asking for a prediction as to when will people go back to work. And so you're seeing this marginal group that are still not returning to work. And I think we're seeing it across the board. We do have very strong relationships with local employers. You're going to see some of our programs that are in the 90s, as far as 95% job placement. I believe a lot of these numbers are college-wide, and some of the students' intention is not necessarily to go right back to work. And so we're seeing a blend more so across the board. And we're trending pretty much like the country.
Well, I would assume that if there are workers who have chosen not to go back to work, that makes the students coming out of our programs more attractive to fill those holes. So I guess the question is not so much have we maintained a good relationship with industry, but is industry ramping up, or healthcare or whatever? Are they going to be hiring more? I know that's out of our control, but what is the feedback we're getting?
I was sitting next to the vice president with Kiewit yesterday, and he said he'd hire everyone he could find. Every student of ours he could get, he'd hire.
Okay,
I mean, and that's pretty much the common response we get.
So we're seeing our industry partners and our other healthcare partners wanting to ramp up.
Yes.
Which will, I guess, answer the question that, yes, 91% may not be out of reach.
So from the healthcare, one of the, and Lenore sits as the chair of Driscoll Children's on top of that, so she can wear that hat too, but and she can attest to it. We've been in the same meetings with these CEOs from the various healthcare institutions locally, and the stressors that are being put upon them because of the retirements and or just the resignations and so forth in the healthcare professions, the stress that it's putting on the hospitals is tremendous. I mean, to the point where they're saying, and I'm almost verbatim here, saying, those kids coming out with those certifications that I was referring to earlier, we want every one of them because, one, they can handle, being in the medical, field in the workplace and so forth. In the short term, they can help us with their skills and or watch the office and or do other things in the hospitals that alleviate the pressures of the stresses of the nurses and the like. And long term, these are our future grow your own kinds of future nurses, physicians, and the like. And so it's a short term and long term kind of situation, and I think they are reviewing, I know that they are reviewing their overall strategies for staffing for the long term.
Is this inclusive of the adult education programs?
I'll let Lenora answer that question.
The adult education, as far as GED, or just adult education?
Continuing education.
Yes. Continuing education is a big player in all of these areas.
Okay.
Through your phlebotomy, your certified nurse, all these areas that are certifications, those are continuing education.
So for adults looking to change careers or get a better career, they're included in this, and these optimistic numbers would be relevant to them as well?
Yes, they would be. They're not included in this number right here. This is only credit students. However, the continuing education students, the placement rate is extremely high.
Okay.
This building is where we house those students and train our adults in the healthcare professions, especially. All throughout here, you'll see them in scrubs. And sometimes they're dual credit students, but this is one of our primary facilities for that. type of instruction. So if you're walking the halls and see them,
I've seen them.
yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, if I can just say, Lenore particularly, I'm very proud and often talk about our relationships with industry and how we can pivot and respond to their needs and those sorts of things. And it's also a good discussion about the economy in general, but those are sort of things that are happening to us.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, are there other things we can do? Here's a general question. From the student standpoint, are we missing the opportunity to make sure that every student knows how to get that job and gets connected?
It's an excellent point in that one of the slides coming up, I'm going to share with you a lot of the grants that we've gotten through continuing education and workforce career corporate services, and they address a lot of those issues, and they're targeting the underprepared is really what I would call the underprepared students who've been left out, and how do we provide them with additional counseling, advising, and job placement.
Right, and that's a good, I can see being underprepared for college and maybe underprepared
Jobs.
for how do you do this and how do we get them connected? And we certainly don't want those employers having to look outside of the Bay Area.
No, we want our programs and our employers to get our
We want to be at the
students.
front of the line, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Wilson, may I ask a quick question, please?
Of course,
On
yes.
the line of working and enrolled for us, the 3.6, that should actually be a negative or a minus 3.6, correct?
Yes.
I want to make sure I'm reading it correctly. And I'm curious your thoughts just on why our decrease there is, probably the largest of any of the variations compared to our cohort and the rest of the Texas colleges.
I think that we're all struggling with keeping our students enrolled during this time period, and the fact that if we think about another data set that we have, the fact that during the pandemic, 85% of our students went to part-time, I think that shows that our students have a robust amount of responsibilities, and it may have been too much for them to do both. And I think it may have impacted our students a little bit disproportionately as compared to our peers.
So it probably relates to the fact that we have such a high part-time population in comparison to some other institutions.
I do think so.
Okay,
Yes.
makes sense. Thank you.
We're generally around 65% part-time, but during the pandemic, that shot up significantly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And going back to a question Regent Hutchinson had, we do have a robust career services office. I just had a discussion about this yesterday, and we're hiring new staff, ramping up services to help students along their whole college experience, from the beginning part of determining what career they want to developing a resume, interview skills, and making those connections with employers. So we offer that as well.
And you think that's going to expand in a way that we can
That's,
move accelerate the trend, or?
so that goes back to my comments, Regent Hutchinson, earlier, that yes, that is an area that, as we've already stated, that is expanding. It's an area that is going to need to receive more attention. I think all colleges will have a different level of responsibility to increase the quality and just the quantity of those services like never before. I think it's going to be a part of the equation for how we receive funding, job placement, and the like in certain areas. And so as such, we are going to have to really focus in on how we get those students to employment like never before. So stay tuned. I think that's just where we're going.
And I completely agree. These are services that we've offered for a while. We've always offered some variation of these services, but these are services we're investing more in, especially as we become more involved with the guided pathways movement, that it's not just about having the degrees and certificates, but making sure that students know how to select the right one for themselves, then also transition to their next step once they complete their credential. So I've seen growth in that area, and as Dr. Escamilla mentioned, I think it's going to continue.
Okay, that's encouraging. I don't want to keep doing the same thing and expecting better results.
No, absolutely.
Lenora mentioned grant funds. We're putting more grant funds in our career services office and making sure that students are aware of these great services that are out there. We have the services. If students don't know about them, then it won't be helpful to them.
Internships and apprenticeships are like, I think, at an all-time high level right now. in terms of activity here at the college, and so we continue to expand those opportunities. I just spoke with a local employer about 10 days ago or so, and he revealed to he's a graduate. He himself is a graduate. He's I guess an executive now with one of the companies here locally. He was talking about how they hire, and this is in one of the industrial companies, that the only way they hire anymore, they don't post job postings for their technicians and their craftspeople anymore. The only way they hire is through their own internship program through Del Mar College. And they only hire, I should say only, the preponderance of the people that they do hire are through the Del Mar College programs and through their own innovative way out of bringing students in. That's just one more example of the expanded need for students or companies to bring people on board. I mean, once they come out of school, are they ready? Well, they're ready to start learning. You know, they're not ready, they're not seasoned process technicians and the like, but companies are getting innovative out there, and we too are responding by expanding that. Again, I think it's going to be an area of even more investment than we've recently made, with at least one more FTE in that area, but I think we should expect to see more growth for sure in the career services area.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Just kind of following up, you used an example of that one student who had gotten a certificate and was now earning more per hour than his two parents. And then you were talking about the number related to working and enrolled students. And I see a big, I'm going to say obstacle, or maybe an opportunity in inflation, right? Sometimes students get a little bit study weary and they say, well, it's too expensive. I've got to work more hours in order to be able to afford gas or whatever it is that he needs to do in order to get through his daily life. But there's also that opportunity for him to say, so I may want to cut back on the number of classes I take, or maybe take a semester off in order to save so that I can sustain myself. But the opportunity is that if he gets in the right program, or he continues his studies, whether it be through grants or whether it be through some internship program that pays a higher wage than what he might be earning in part-time work, that he can continue to study, maybe even increase the number of classes he's taking. So what can we do? Because our goal is to increase our enrollment. And inflation, I think, is an obstacle for us in this particular period of time. So what can we do so that we can properly message to those students that they're looking for a solution to their current
So we have different
situation?
programs going on right now, the TAG program specifically, and a few others. I don't think Patricia's here to
No,
talk
she's
about
not
that.
here at this time.
Yeah, I don't know who might have that information, but we do have programs where we're offering students opportunities to take even more classes. Lenore, do you got those details?
Yes, that is part of the benefit from the HERF funding that you were asking about that came to us through the federal government through the Federal Relief Act. We're being able to supplement students who fall within 125% now of the income range for poverty. If their family falls within those ranges, then we can pay for their tuition up to 12 hours. And all they have to do is enroll. And so basically, through these different programs, they can come to school for free. Now, we will take financial aid first, and then on top of it, the funding comes out of this program. And so that's been established now, is being advertised right now as the TAG You're It, to come and take additional courses. So, thank you.
The messaging is happening, and that's a very good point. Fatigue does happen, school fatigue does happen, but we definitely want them here because while they're working, they can also be working towards short-term credential and associate degree and in a better place for themselves and their family. So that's an excellent point. If there's no further questions on this KPI, I'll move on to the next one. This KPI looks at licensure and certification pass rates, and specifically the percentage of students in credit programs that successfully completed their licensure or certification exams. The next slide will look at the specific programs that are included in the calculation of this KPI. We have met our KPI threshold, and in a second, you'll see the trend line. This is actually a KPI that has increased very steadily over time, and our students' pass rates are also slightly above the large college cohort peers.
So what do you attribute our greater success in here as opposed to the other categories?
I think, personally, exceptional instruction. Exceptional instruction and preparing our students for the workforce. You know, we've talked about quite a bit today about making sure that we are aligning what our students learn with the workforce. I think that that's reflected in this trend line here. You'll see from 2016, this rate was at 82.8%, and now we're at 91. I think it's a concerted effort of our programs and our faculty to make sure students are learning what they need to be successful. And Dr. Escamilla mentioned internships, hands-on learning. I think that that's something we're very strong in.
The other thing is, Del Mar is, I think, again, at a forerunner in the sense of program accreditations, okay, that really keep our levels of quality up. We have many, many programs that don't necessarily have to have programmatic accreditation, but we've maintained those for decades here. And and we have some of the only courses or programs that are accredited in community colleges. I know we have the first music nationally accredited program of community colleges in the country that we continue to maintain, as an example. Of course, our healthcare programs, our EMT program, all of these other programs have, again, we have SACS, COC, the big mothership accreditation, and then all the little programmatic things. Those things that we maintain are very time-consuming. They're very process intensive and the like. They take a lot of effort, but that's what maintains the quality more so than, I'm going to say, our peers throughout the country.
And in fact, we have 2 different site visits going on this week for program accreditors, so that's an excellent point. The level of excellence and rigor that these program accreditations require, I think, really take us to the next level.
Dr. Sidney Sambi was over there nodding, and I saw a yes, and that's our point of the spear for those kinds of programmatic, to maintain those programmatic accreditations, make sure all those plates are spinning.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Is it a fair inference then that our students are, if our students aren't getting jobs, it's not because they've not technically and academically prepared for them? They're good employees if they can just get the connection and the jobs there. Is that a reach?
Yes. I think that's a fair conclusion.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of social and economic factors and stressors that are really distracting a lot of people right now.
I skipped over this last slide. Just want to make sure you got a chance to take a look at the various programs that make up this 91% pass rate. There's a variety of programs that require students to pass a licensure or certification in order to enter the field, and as you can see, our rates are very high. The final slide for this KPI looks at the details for Del Mar College, our large college peers, and all Texas colleges. Our rates are slightly higher than the Texas large college cohort and the state averages, but as you can see, our rate of change over the last 5 years is significantly higher than that of our peers. And as we've discussed, I would attribute that to the work of our faculty and staff to ensure excellence in our programs. Any questions about this KPI? Thank you. I'm going to hand it back over to Executive Vice President Keyes.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Okay, This is giving you some selective data on continuing education. The data you just saw was tracking credit programs only. And so when we look at our continuing education program, the numbers do not track as well as far as within the system. So we've provided some selective information here for you. As you can see in the construction skills program, this was a program that was recognized as Rebuild Texas by the governor 2 years ago as we worked with really the damage from Hurricane Harvey, and we deployed a grant throughout the region. So we've continued with the program, and you're looking at a 74% completion rate and this number of students and the average wage that they receive. It's a 10-week program, and where students learn to actually build a small, they wanted to call it a tiny home. It's not, it's a shed, okay? We do not build tiny homes. A liability thing. Anyway, so under the healthcare programs, you can see our high rate of completion. We're at 95%, and that placement rate goes right along with that. We are showing an average wage of $18 per hour, and you, as Dr. Escamilla mentioned, you can find it much higher within the region. But I think it's very impressive to say that we've had over 1,500 students, and of course that's duplicated enrollment, because they may have received a phlebotomy or a certified nurse or multiple different certifications within that classification to prepare them for a variety of programs. Most recently, we were proud of this, that we just signed a contract, and our construction training program is now located in the Nueces County McKenzie Jail Annex and in the Juvenile Justice Center. And so that went into place just 2 weeks ago, I believe, and it's a continuation of that construction program, that carpentry program. And so you see how we are reaching out within the community, and not just with business and industry, but within different communities that have great need. Of course, we've always worked with craft training and our Association of General Contractors. In the healthcare programs, it's very significant that we are related and tying in with different healthcare providers across the region. And this is to provide clinical experience for the students. So it's not an internship, but it's clinical hours. And so if you go into any facility really within the area, you might run into one of our students there working and being paid, but at the same time receiving their clinical hours. This is showing a listing of some of the grants that continuing education and corporate services has received over the last year and a half. To address some of Regent Hutchinson's questions regarding how we are meeting those needs of those students to help place them is through some of these grants. The Texas Workforce Commission, TWC Accelerate Texas grant, this is your basic literacy. And we were able to combine basic literacy courses with workforce programs such as HVAC, air conditioning repair, or these type of trade skill programs. So a student receiving their GED or the advancement through a basic literacy could also be taking a skills trade program. So it prepared those people to go on to work. This is a great example, too, of how the grants truly are funding our GED, our basic literacy programs. So the students do not pay tuition. Later, you're going to see where we're asking for an increase in continuing education tuition. This is an area that shows where those students do not pay tuition. So those areas are not impacted because these grants are paying the students' fees and the students' tuition. So as you see, there's a variety of grants up here. The TRUE initiative is another big initiative that came out this last year. And under Dr. Rivera's guidance and leadership, they've been very successful in receiving these grants. And they were directly impacting students who were impacted by COVID. So as methods to reach out, it funded how to reach out and get those students back into college and to take continuing education courses. Texas Mutual Safety Grant is one that we're on our 8th year of receiving. This is showing $50,000, was $50,000 for continuing education and another $50,000 for corporate services. We've been able to utilize those funds to provide safety training for a variety of school districts for their school bus drivers, and this individuals in general to take OSHA or hurricane preparedness, those type of courses, and again, for free. So these grants are offsetting in many areas where students would be paying tuition, and we are very effective in utilizing these grants for that method. This is showing a variety of the classifications of the programs under continuing education, corporate services, or what we call workforce programs, where we go across the board from transportation training, our CDL truck driving, all the way to pre-apprenticeships, to apprenticeship training, and that's where you receive your regular crafts, such as electrical, plumbing, wiring, those type of skills. And those apprenticeship grants go all the way from McAllen to San Antonio. And we are one of the few community colleges within the state that, that provide those through the U.S. Department of Labor. Our grants through the Texas Workforce Commission are skills development grants, and the college has been extremely successful in receiving those in their areas. Some previously were in multi-million dollars. This last year, they were smaller, depending on what's happened out in industry. And of course, just our customized training. This is where we work with contracts, by contract, through specific clients. This is showing just example for NCCER, which is our National Center for Construction, Education, and Research Accreditation, and how it applies across the board to provide students with an additional credential that helps them get hired. And so when they go to apply for a position within business or industry, they, in addition to the Del Mar College credential, they have an industry-related and highly recognized credential. And this is where you're seeing it. The scaffold building has been very successful in providing people with that training, and they're hired right immediately before they finish their scaffold building courses. And now it's back to Dr. Wilson.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The construction skills program has about a 26% non-completion rate.
Yes, sir.
Do we know why?
I think it has, going back over to that slide, it has to do with the amount of time, in that these are 8-hour-a-day courses for 10 weeks. And I think what we find is that most of these people learn part of the skill and they get a job. But we've not tracked that officially, but that's what our instructors are telling me.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We've talked quite a bit about ensuring our students are ready for the workforce, but the way that we do that is through collaboration and communication, and we've talked about that already today. I'm going to highlight a few additional examples of how Del Mar College has recently sought to collaborate with our local partners and also ensure that we're communicating effectively. One of those examples, VP Keys recently mentioned just a few moments ago, the TRUE initiative. TRUE stands for Texas Reskilling and Upskilling Through Education, and aims to prepare students for in-demand careers through the attainment of micro-credentials. Our continuing education division is well known throughout the state and was recently recognized for the way that we both develop micro-credentials and ensure that students are completing them and then entering the workforce. We have partnered with Coastal Bend College to offer short-term programs aimed at serving the residents of Jim Wells County. So when it comes to the TRUE initiative, we have a partnership with Coastal Bend College, and then we're also receiving grant funds on our own to serve students in other programs. And on your screen, you can see the programs that we are offering directly to students in Jim Wells County. Two additional examples include the Aransas County Workforce Development Center and the recent South Texas Regional Workforce and Education Partnership meeting. The Workforce Development Center, I'm sure you're familiar with, is a partnership between Aransas County, Del Mar College, and others to serve Rockport, Fulton, and surrounding communities through job training and other educational opportunities. It's expected that the center will open in early 2023. And in late April, Del Mar College partnered with the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation, the Texas Association of Community Colleges, otherwise known as TAC, and Workforce Solutions of the Coastal Bend to bring together workforce leaders and educational partners to discuss what we need to do to meet local demand for a skilled workforce, not just overall for our region, but also now that we have quite a few jobs and individuals who want jobs. How do we make that connection? So that meeting took place in April and was a really good example of how we continue to collaborate and communicate with our partners. The final objective for Goal 5 is advocacy. The following are a few examples of how the college has recently advocated for institutional needs on the local, state, and national levels. And I'm really happy to say our board of Regents, you all are wonderful advocates. You are on the move. You are always advocating for our students, both locally, but also across the state and the nation. In September of 2021, our Board of Regents Chair, Carol Scott, and our President and CEO, Mark Escamilla, were appointed to the newly formed Texas Commission on Community College Finance. The commission will provide recommendations to the 88th Texas Legislature to establish sufficient state formula funding for public community colleges. Talk about having a seat at the table, two of our own helping to make these decisions. And I'm sure I don't have to remind you of the recent redistricting efforts that took place to ensure equity among our district populations. This slide highlights a few examples of region advocacy. Again, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but we're thankful for your role in ensuring that local needs are met. There's a photo of your recent tour looking at the new Oso Creek campus. We have two of our regents and Dr. Escamilla meeting with Congressman Cloud, and then our chairperson, Carol Scott, advocating nationally as part of ACCT. So thank you for all that you do. We wouldn't be a success without our Board of Regents. And finally, let's not forget our faculty and staff. They also serve as very strong advocates, in particular in activities taking place on the state level. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board has numerous committees in which faculty and staff can participate in order to have their voice heard, to develop and solidify curriculum that'll be utilized across the state. So we have quite a few of our faculty who have participated in field of study curriculum committees. These are essential for transfer. And some of the committees in which they've taken place are social work, political science, and sociology. We're also very active on the Texas Transfer Advisory Committee, the Learning Technology Advisory Committee, and the Student Success Advisory Work Group. I don't have the numbers to back this up, but I will tell you, just my sense is Del Mar College is more than likely one of the most involved schools in the state with coordinating board efforts. And that brings us to the end of Goal 5. Are there any questions about this particular goal and the examples provided? Okay. One more goal to go. I'm going to hand it over to our CFO, Raul Garcia.
Well, that's a hard act to follow, but I'll do my best. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Wilson. So we are near the end of our presentation with Goal 6. The objective of this goal is to ensure the college has the financial capacity and sound command of our resources to fund our operating activities in support of our strategic goals. From the optics of our student, Mary McQueen and I have for you 4 general categories to assess student affordability. This includes information relating to student tuition and fees, student financial assistance as measured by tuition discount, student college debt after their completion of a degree or certificate, and foundation scholarships. From the lens of sound financial fiscal management, Dr. West will go over 5 financial ratios used to measure the college's sound fiscal management. These ratios include the return on net position, operating margin, financial viability, and the composition financial indicator. So let's. Okay. On an annual basis, the college will assess the college's tuition and fees with consideration to the demographics of our district and our student population. This includes information regarding the percentage of persons in poverty, the district's median household income, the student's financial assistance, and the amount of student college loan debt. Del Mar College strives for a long-term strategy of stable, modest tuition increases. Our most recent board approved an increase of $2 on a per semester credit beginning this fall of 2022. So based on these data points on this slide, our stable and modest increase strategy appears to be effective. On a term-over-term basis, a Del Mar student experienced a cost of tuition and fee increase of 1.8% for the 2022 fall term. Our rate increase is significantly lowered when we compare ourselves to Texas large community colleges and Texas-wide community college with a rate of increase of 2.4% and 11.8% respectively for the same term. If there are no questions, I will go on to the next slide and talk about a little bit more detail of how we compare relative to our peer group. The Del Mar sticker price for 15 semester credit hours is valued at $1,690. It is near the midpoint of our peers. This is attributed, once again, in part to our steady and modest tuition increase strategy. The second category to measure student affordability is the amount of loan debt a student has at the completion of their degree or certificate program. The Del Mar student, on the average, has the least amount of debt at $13,880 relative to 7 of our 8 peer colleges. This is attributed once again in part to our modest sticker price driven by our steady and modest tuition increase strategy. In addition, our student financial assistance funding as measured by tuition discount rate helps drive our modest sticker price. If there are no questions, we will transition to the discount rate on the next slide.
Can I ask, I think this is, if I'm reading this correctly, you're saying the average transfer debt, the KPI threshold is low and our target is going to be low to mid-range. Why would we want to increase our range, our target?
Let me see if I understand the question. We are at the low end. So essentially, it's very difficult to gauge what the other price increases and the tuition is going to be for our peer group. And we also don't know the level of student financial support will come their way. I can tell you, based on what I learned earlier today, is that we are very active in pursuit of grants. Specifically, we talked about the workforce. And so that's going to help drive or continue to drive a low debt transfer rate. I will also add that our HERF funding, we took the initiative to use some of those dollars to pay off some of the old student debt. So that's going to help our rates. But it is very difficult to say, hey, we want to be at the low end or the moderate. So I'm taking a range, low to moderate range. Does that answer your question?
I think it does, but
Okay.
it sounds like I haven't heard anything that says we shouldn't expect the same low rates that we've had before. Am I reading it
Well, and
backwards?
I have to agree with you. I mean, I could see where maybe our threshold is low to mid-range, but our aspirational goal is to maybe go up to mid-range?
To do not quite as well.
Yeah.
Is are we just?
I don't think that was
So
explained.
there's a couple of things. I think one of the things that we can qualify these data with is that, you know, the students at other colleges, at all these other colleges, I think every one of them, with maybe one exception, has a residential experience that causes them to incur more debt also, okay? So that's one of the things. Those students are borrowing more money.
That's going to stay the same.
Yes.
Okay, all of that's the same. So
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we why wouldn't be on the low rate?
I mean, we can definitely change it, but here's another factor. Our HERF funding is going to be running out. And so this level of transfer date does take into consideration that HERF funding during this period of time. And so the question is that going to have a significant impact on that loan debt that our students are incurring? It's a big question mark. I don't know. But I'm fearing that without the HERF funding, it may result in an increase in how.
That may have made this an anomaly.
Yes, the HERF funding is what I'm saying. That's part of it.
Question.
Yeah.
But we're talking about our aspirations, right? And I look at this and I see we're at 1690 for our cost, and yet we've managed to keep our student debt low. We've been best at that.
For the 2019 year, yes, sir.
So clearly, maybe we used our HERF funds more effectively, or we prioritized student tuition, I don't know. But to aspire to go to mid-range, I hear the factors that you're concerned about, but I'm wondering why we're aspiring to that.
So I think I'm still thinking it through. There's different kinds of answers right there. Why would we aspire to have more debt for the students is the question, and I get that. I think it's going to be all relative to where the other groups move and where we stay. I mean, the economy is going to continue to move up. Inflation is going to continue to move up and so forth. And I think this variable could be re-examined. I'm getting a nod from Dr. Christina over there in terms of what we're really aspiring to. And I think it's a more sophisticated, this is sophisticated, but I think it's a more nuanced measure that we need to be thinking about. We don't want to aspire to give more students more debt.
Right.
Yeah, I get that.
That's what this looks like.
That's
yeah.
what it looks like. And now the brain's unpacking this. It's taken me a little bit. So I think let us look at this KPI and outcome and reinterpret what it means that we're trying to aspire. At the end of the day, the affordability factor is the pillar of our existence and the like, and any kind of debt that we can do, we can help minimize is critical. We get that. With that being said, and even with the factor of the HERF dollars and all those scenarios that offset the dollars and cents of all of this, let us think about this philosophically and come back, maybe as a tweak and adjustment.
And this is the first time we've looked at it this way.
Yeah. So,
Can I also ask, I note that this is for fiscal year 2019. Do we not have 2022 numbers?
Yes, so my source of information is the Texas Public Higher Education Almanac. They're the ones that capture all the information Texas-wide. And the most current report is 2021. And the information that's reported on that is the most information that they were able to compile, which is fiscal year 2019. I can share with you, I don't have the data, but I can adjust the presentation to include our numbers only. But that's it. We won't be able to compare ourselves with any other institution to see how we are trending relative to our peer group. So this is the next best available information.
Okay, that number for us may be helpful, but also would that not include HERF money?
So the 2019 did include some HERF money. I think 2019 was the first fiscal year that we did receive the CARES Act funding. And then 2021 is when the other two, HERF 2 and 3, came into play.
Okay, I didn't realize it was that soon. Okay.
Yeah, it was that fall. The other thing, too, as a reminder, our students on average take 2.5 classes, okay? So it's about 8 hours, 8-point-something hours is the average. So the 15 hours is a packaged number that the state uses. This is an example of the state using different metrics. I'm going to call them university metrics, even university-esque metrics to package data and so forth. They're working on those kinds of things so that community college could have more nuanced data sets that really speak to our students. 15 hours, really on average is the course of 2 semesters for a student, if you think about it. It's 5 classes split in half, 2.5 classes.
Well, and that explanation I would understand. As we're moving to try and encourage students to take more classes and get through their programs faster, I think in part to make sure they get through their programs. If more debt was required, but they're getting out with a certification or a degree, that variable I would understand.
Yes, that is the inverse side of the conversation, is if they're incurring more debt and they're taking more classes, if they're living on campus, we can't afford that to them, but if they're living and spending more time on task, that's why we're encouraging through the TAG programs and all these other classes, types of programs out there, to take more classes, that they would invest more, therefore take on more debt to finish faster. Time to completion is one of our goals and one of our adjustments as we write our new strategic plan as we move ahead to tighten up even further more on that. So, but that's the inverse of it, and that's what these other colleges sell. And I was at Tyler Junior College, where it was purely residential. In so many cases, the vast majority of their students take more classes than they do here because they live there. There's sports, there's dorms. It's a huge, rich collegiate experience, much more like a university and so forth. And so I've seen that aspect of it all. And the students do finish more quickly when they're able to come. The average age is younger because they come for that collegiate experience. They live on campus, they eat on campus. They go home on the weekends and they come back and live the full, rich collegiate experience. It's a very, very different experience. The vast majority of these colleges up there have at least a partial version of that, if not a full version of that.
But we do hear nationally, and I can speak to my children's experience with their peers who had to take out loans, that is a huge impediment to post-college success.
Yep. In fact, one of the colleges up there is 60% charges 60% of what it takes to go to a major university, where we're at 25% or 27% of a regional university. So they have built-in costs that are quite considerable. And yes, although all things considered, affordable across the board, when you think about it, when you think about the student's first 2 years of experience at a community college, the idea is that they come out with as little cost and residual long-term debt as possible.
Yes. So as a recap, maybe we should change the goal to a low. It shouldn't be a problem. Why? Because of 2 factors. Low, steady, modest increase. I just talked about a data point that our overall tuition increase has been significantly lowered relative to our peer groups. This next data point on the next slide is also the factor that plays into this debt, and that is the amount of student award measured in terms of tuition discount. So it'll definitely give you peace of mind that I'm pretty certain that next year we will hit our low rate again. So not that I'm going to come in and gouge our students with a $10 or $30 or $50 tuition increase. That's not going to happen. But we do have a lot of work in terms of trying to find alternative grant financial aid assistance, just like what Ms. Keys talked about. And that is an ongoing effort to maintain this high level of discount rate that we're going to now talk about. Okay, here we go. So, Mr. Garza, this next data point will help address your question posed earlier regarding helping our students during the economic period of scaling inflation rates, okay? So, just a little background. Student financial assistance, as measured by tuition discount, is a 3rd category for assessing student affordability. Tuition discount represents student financial assistance funding used to reduce the student sticker price. It is used by institutions of higher ed as a strategy to increase student enrollment and retention. The source of funding for this financial assistance programs comes in many forms. This includes federal grants, such as the Pell Supplement Educational Opportunity Grant, most commonly recognized as SEOG, state grants, Texas Educational Opportunity Grants, and the Texas Public Educational Grants, and the many more that Ms. Keys just spoke about. There's also contributions from our local community, including corporate, non-for-profit, ISDs, and our financial, and lastly, state-mandated and discretionary waivers funded by the respective institutions of higher ed. Del Mar College has waivers for police officers, firefighters, foster care, and DMC employees. All of that, tuition and fees, grant funding, combination, all contribute to that low transfer date. Can anybody predict what that grant funding is going to be next year? It's going to be impossible. I can tell you, HERF is gone. But we can still target a low transfer debt. Shouldn't be an issue. Yes, sir. Okay. So let's talk about, so the discounts on this slide is based on, and I think I got ahead of myself here. Here we go. Okay, good. So the discounts rates on this slide is based on all of the funding sources divided by the gross tuition and fee revenues. Again, that's your discount. You go to a store, you see a sale 30% off, that's what I'm talking about. 30%, in our case, 58% off the sticker price, the cost of tuition and fees for our students. So the Del Mar discount rate, again, for 2021 fall term is 58%. In other words, on the average, student financial assistance programs at Del Mar College pays 58 cents of every $1 of the student sticker price, 58 cents. Our high discount rate of 58 cents is 22 percentage points above the discount rate of 36.2% for Texas large community colleges. This is fairly consistent for the term 2019 and 2020. Okay? So, in the absence of tuition discount report for Texas-wide community colleges, the next best thing to gauge our tuition discount rates against the rates published by the National Association of Colleges and Universities and Business Offices, also referred to as NACUBO for short. NACUBO has been studying the tuition discount rates for private non-for-profit colleges and universities since 1994. This study takes a narrow view of student financial assistance programs and focuses only on institutional funded awards. In addition, the study excludes federal grants, it excludes state grants, and it excludes state mandated waivers. So this narrow focus on student assistance awards suggests a discount rate that is at the low end of the scale, With that said, Del Mar's discount rate for the fall of 2021 is 10 percentage points above the NACUBO discount rate of 48.1 for the fall of 2021. This last comparison will be more meaningful when we compare ourselves to our peer groups on the next slide. Any questions on the discount?
I hope this isn't premature. Maybe it's something you're going to go into, but I think of these KPIs as competition. How can we do better than we did before? How can we do better than our peers or our expectations? I mean, isn't this a difficult one if the funding's coming from Pell Grants? I mean, the students are who the students are.
Yes, this is a very difficult one, and you're absolutely right, because Pell Grant, is one of those major student financial assistance programs. And so the demographics does play a role in us, in ours. But it still could be a good comparison because we have other institutions in our peer group with similar student demographics.
So is the other factor that we do have control over the foundation, our own individuals? I mean, how do we do better than people who have the same demographics in terms of getting funding?
Yes, yes. In terms of making it more affordable, it's a combination of several things. Cost of tuition, the tuition increases, right? And then pursuing and targeting other grant source of funding, whether it's corporate, financial, of the foundation. So, so we will talk about in short order the foundation piece, but let's talk about how we currently stand overall relative to our peer group. Yes.
Just want to add another dimension to that conversation is that, you know, the cost of attending per se is one thing. The cost of living, as we all know, is always the biggest factor, whether you have a residential experience or a commuter experience. And then it's time to completion. That's really the affordability. You know, affordability getting in is one thing, sustaining is the other. So there's a really big, broad conversation about our student experience here that really we can spend many hours talking about, for sure. But again, I've noticed it as I've studied residential university experiences and community college part-time experiences. What are really the costs? What is affordability? What are we really talking about with affordability? I just open up a bigger discussion that I hope we can continue to have, especially as we get ready to write our new strategic plan. I'm planting these seeds of thoughts so that we can come back, visit, and hopefully formulate a not only a narrative but a plan that addresses the nature. First of all, that we understand our students' experience, and that we can put together a plan that can mitigate long-term affordability costs. I think, and that's really, at the end of the day, well, one of the biggest factors for sure.
Okay. Thank you. Any other
I
questions?
do have a question.
Yes, sir.
The high school students are now required to fill out an application for financial aid. Is that going to have any impact on this?
So yeah, that's a good segue into this next slide. So pivoting back to a similar question that you had, how can we do better in terms of getting more financial assistance? The other side of the coin is legislation is also helping us a little bit more, because there is legislation now that requires high school students to apply for financial aid. That's always been a challenge for us. I'm sorry.
Specifically starting with the class that just graduated 2022.
Yes. So over the course of 2 years, I think we added another FTE, I think funded through the HERF dollars, to help the Office of Financial Aid in trying to create awareness of this financial aid and trying to get more students to apply for financial aid and creating more outreach initiatives to get our students to apply for it. Well, that effort is now going to change a little bit because by state statute or by law, students are going to be required to apply for federal financial aid. So that's going to help a little bit. But we still need to now concentrate our efforts to targeting other federal, state, and local grant funding to continue and assist with the financial needs of our students. Mr. Bennett, does that answer your question?
Well, it helps.
How can I bridge the gap?
You're good.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So when looking at the discount rates for our peer group, Del Mar and Laredo Community Colleges delivers the highest level of student assistance programs with a discount rate for the 2021 fall term of 58% and 77% respectively. I also mentioned earlier that the NACUBO study has a narrow focus and does not include state mandated waivers, federal grants, and state grants. As a result, the NACUBO discount rate would be significantly on the low end of the scale. This is a sharp contrast to the discount rates listed on this slide for our peer groups because these rates does include state mandated waivers, federal grants, and state grants. With that said, Del Mar and Laredo are the two colleges in our peer group with a discount rate that is well above the NACUBO study rates of 48.1%. And this is why I go back to the transfer date. We can set a target of low only because we are already exceeding, I think, expectations in terms of finding dollars to help bridge the gap of our student needs.
But once again, on our aspiration, we're at high right now, and we're aspiring to go to mid to high?
Yes.
Why?
HERF funding.
But this is a comparison to our peers who are also going to lose their HERF funding, right?
Yes, but we don't know how they use their HERF funding and at what level, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so the level of targeted dollars to help our students will vary. It could be $1 for Blinn College, who really doesn't have to do anything, but it could be $20 for Del Mar because of the needs of our student demographics.
Well, now, I heard an explanation which I understood in the last category. What would be the explanation as to why we would want to go from high to mid on our discount rate?
Because of the unknown being the major factor in today's economy. We really don't know what's going to happen with the corporate donations.
Those would be challenges.
Right? Those were challenges.
But what are we aspiring to?
We can definitely aspire for the stars high, or do we want to be a little bit more conservative based on what the near future looks like?
Wouldn't that be a threshold goal then?
I'm sorry?
That would be the threshold then, right? Being more conservative as opposed to our aspirations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She's the one who monitors these most closely, and I'm still trying to think it through.
I appreciate what you said a few minutes ago about the fact that when we develop the new strategic plan, we need to think about how we look at affordability. And what CFO Garcia has been trying to do is look at it in different ways, because when it comes to the tuition amounts, it doesn't quite tell you the whole story. So these are just some ways that he's proposing that we look at affordability, but I'm in agreement with you. These are initial proposals, but when it comes to, the way you described it is absolutely correct. When it comes to our targets, that's aspirational. Despite challenges, despite the things we can't control, that's aspirational. And our threshold is what we seek to maintain. So you're absolutely right. So I believe that we should adjust those, and I appreciate that you're bringing different ways for us to look at this data.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, course correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
you.
Yes. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Up next is Dr. West.
Okay, so now we'll take a look at our KPIs, our financial ratios that we use to measure our performance in achieving Goal 6. The coordinating board uses these ratios to measure the financial stability of the Texas public community colleges. And most of the colleges, like Del Mar, for fiscal year 2021, did improve on all four ratios and then the composite financial index. And for us, even though, we're fighting the challenges of the pandemic with the drop in enrollment, we still have prudent fiscal management, and we offset the loss in tuition with HERF funding. Also, because of the decline in tuition, you have less instructional cost, so that resulted in a very healthy surplus for 2021, which moved into our unrestricted fund balance. So for each ratio, I'm going to show you the results, and then following, I have an explanation of what the ratio means and what the calculation is. And I know I went over this last year, but I think it's good, a fresh reminder, and so that's what we're going to do. So the first one, return on net position, we went from 7.1 to 11.2, and for all the ratios, we met our threshold and we met our target by exceeding the state standard. So I won't say that over and over again, but we did for all four ratios. And so this ratio measures total economic return, answers the question, is the college better off financially than it was a year ago? And as you can see by the graph, we consistently run above the state standard of 0. And then at the bottom of each slide, I have the formula for those of you that would be interested in the calculation. Our next KPI, operating margin revenue ratio, we went from 6.0 to 7.4. And this ratio measures operating performance, answers the question, did the college balance operating revenues with available, or operating expenses with available revenue? And yes, we did. As I said, we did have a surplus, and our ratio went up to 7.4 for fiscal year 2021. Then our primary reserve ratio went from 0.45 to 0.5. And this ratio measures your financial strength and flexibility. How long can the college survive without additional net position generated by operating revenue? And we consistently run much higher than the state standard of 0.14. And then the viability ratio, we went from 3.36 to 3.95. This measures the availability of the expendable net position to cover debt and answers the question, how much debt can the college pay off with existing resources? And as you can see, we consistently are well above the state standard of 0.42. Okay, now the composite financial indicator is a metric that combines the previous ratios that I just gave you, and you do a calculation and you weight the ratios and give them strength factors, and you come out with this overall number. And you can see for 2020 it was 5.5, it went up to 6.7. And like I said, you calculate this index, and we consistently run greater than the state standard of 2.0. And then on this one, I just showed you, I'm showing you each of the ratios that go in to the calculation. Okay, any questions?
I have a quick question. So going back to the last two slides ago to look at the composite financial index ratio, and it appears that we're over even 2019 levels now, correct?
Right.
Is that what other colleges are experiencing, or, because that looks fantastic to me?
Right. Yes, and the report said the coordinating board's report said for 2021 that most of the colleges, almost all of the colleges, have substantially improved their financial stability. So we are in line with all the other colleges as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And that goes to us building up our unrestricted reserves as we have been doing.
Right.
So that has a lot to do with it.
Great, wonderful, thank you.
All right. And now, I believe I turn it over to Mary McQueen.
Another component that we like to measure is the input from the foundation, which basically is an input from the community by providing scholarship dollars for awarding to our students. So we partner with multiple different areas to get investments for student scholarships or programming, and we use the KPI of the scholarship amounts awarded per year and the number of students. Maybe. There we go. Oops, sorry. So this is the, looking over the number of years, the amount of the scholarship awards. We range anywhere from 1.8 to 1.4, almost 1.5. And you can see the number of students. The idea is to maintain the amount of scholarship funding provided to students annually. That's the threshold, maintain, and then the target, of course, is to increase by 5%. And you can see here the numbers over the years. This is just a graph that shows you where we are on the scholarship amount awarded. The amount, by the way, for 2022 is preliminary. Just wanted to make sure we included that. And I think the major reason was we saw a decrease, obviously, in scholarship funding during 2022 and 2021. And I wanted to show that we were kind of back on track for scholarship funding for 2022. And again, this is the number of students awarded. Most of this kind of correlates with the amount of money that is given. So once again, we are moving back to a higher level for funding for scholarships. I believe that's my last one. Any questions on the scholarships? Thank you. There we go.
Thank you to the team for providing great information on Goal 6. You have now completed the final workshop for this academic year, and welcome, Chairperson Scott. So this next year is going to be a little bit different as we start the development of the next strategic plan. And also, you've been through 2 years' worth of workshops, many of you, 2 years' worth of workshops on our strategic plan KPIs. So I'm going to be working with Dr. Escamilla, Executive Vice President Keys, to put together a robust but also doable schedule for this next year, because we need to think about what data you want to see, what data updates, but then also start planning for this next strategic plan. So what you see on the screen right now is a very rough plan or high-level plan. We expect to start with step 1 of the planning process, assessing the landscape in spring of 2023. This will incorporate, as we know, several main factors that we want in our new strategic plan, which is the state's new strategic plan. We want to make sure to incorporate strategic enrollment management and the priority of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those are some priorities that have risen to the top in our discussions of what needs to be included in the next strategic plan. In the fall of 2023, that's the stage known as the planning roadmap. This is where we gather information for faculty, staff, students, and the community. In the spring of 2024, we'll actually develop the plan, have some prototypes that you'll look at and you'll provide some feedback on. And then with the goal of our Board of Regents approving the plan before August of 2024. So that's a rough plan for the next strategic plan, but as I mentioned, this next year is going to be crucial. We want to make sure we make the best use of your time while providing updates on the current strategic plan and planning for the next one. So you'll be getting a plan for those workshops very soon. Any additional questions on the schedule for the next strategic plan or any information that was covered today? Well, I want to thank you for your time and your commitment to learning about what we do here at Del Mar College, and for your comments that will help us get even better at what we do. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for my tardiness. My travel plans messed with me getting here on time this morning, so I apologize. The board will now go into a closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 regarding pending or contemplated litigation or a settlement offer and the seeking of legal advice from counsel with possible discussion and action in open session. Also, Texas Government Code 551.089 regarding the security assessments or deployments relating to information resources technology, network security information as described in Section 2059.055B, or the deployment or specific occasions for implementation of security personnel, critical infrastructure, or security devices with possible discussion and action in open session, and Texas Government Code 551.087 regarding the discussion, deliberation of information received from a business prospect with which the college is conducting economic development negotiations, and/or the deliberation of an offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect with possible discussion and action in open session, and Texas Government Code 551.074 regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of public officer or employee, including the annual evaluation of the college president and president's contract. The time is 11:51 a.m.